Destiny breaks in one click. When lies smell like someone else's cologne, and the truth burns in a cloud with someone else's photos, don't blink, or you'll miss the moment when life becomes a weapon. The morning it all collapsed started with the shrill beep of my alarm. 6:03 a.m. Sunlight seeped through the blinds in thin blades, cutting across the empty space where my wife should have been. Olivia's pillow still held the faint indent of her head, but the sheets were cold. Downstairs, I heard the familiar soundtrack of our marriage, the gurgle of the coffee maker, the clatter of her car keys on the kitchen counter. 8 years had sanded our relationship into something smooth and predictable, until recently, I'd noticed the cracks. How she'd stopped laughing at my dumb jokes. How her texts grew shorter, colder. 2 months ago, she'd asked me to take a weekend off work for our anniversary. I'd promised, then canceled last minute when a client demanded revisions. It's fine, she'd said, but her voice cracked on the word fine. I told myself we'd make up for it. We never did. Now, as I tugged on my work boots, I spotted her journal peeking out from under the bed. I'd never invade her privacy until I did. Flipping it open, a Polaroid fell out. Olivia and me at Coney Island, our faces smeared with cotton candy. On the page beneath it, her handwriting slashed angrily. He doesn't see me anymore. I'm just a ghost in his house. I slammed the journal shut, guilt sour in my throat. Work blurred into a montage of concrete and blueprints. By 7 p.m., my foreman, Dave, clapped my shoulder. Go home, Ethan. You look like hell. The house was dark when I arrived, Olivia's SUV absent. I microwaved leftovers, scrolling mindlessly through my phone. Then ping. A notification from our shared iCloud. New photo added. 6:15 p.m. I tapped it. The image loaded slowly, pixel by pixel. Olivia's auburn hair fanned across a hotel pillow I didn't recognize. Her lips were parted, her body arched under a man's tattooed hands. The timestamp read today. My fingers trembled as I swiped. More photos, videos, receipts for rooms booked at the Marriott. A receipt I'd paid for. The front door clicked open. Olivia froze in the doorway, gym bag in hand. You're home early, she said, too casually. I stared at her Lululemon leggings, the same ones she'd worn in the photo. Who is he? I rasped. Her face paled. Ethan, let's talk. Who is he? She flinched. Marcus? From spin class. The bathroom mirror fogged with steam as I gripped the sink. Olivia's voice slithered under the door. You were never here. You chose your job over us. I hurled my phone at the wall. It shattered, the screen still glowing with her betrayal. In the garage, I unearthed our wedding album. Page after page of us grinning, me in a too-tight tux, her in lace she'd sewn herself. On the last page, a note, to my forever. Love you to the moon. I ripped it out, the paper tearing like skin. At 2 a.m., headlights swept the driveway. Olivia's heels clicked up the stairs. I waited until her breathing deepened, then slid open her nightstand drawer. Beneath silk scarves, I found it, a pregnancy test. Positive. The dates didn't add up. The next morning, I stood in the sterile glow of a CVS pharmacy aisle, staring at pregnancy tests. The same brand Olivia had hidden. Rain lashed the windows as I clutched the box, my reflection fractured in the security mirror above. The cashier's judgmental stare followed me to the register. Rough night, she asked, nodding at my wrinkled shirt. I didn't answer. Back in my truck, I tore open the box. Instructions fluttered to the floor. Wait 3 minutes. I'd waited 8 years for Olivia to want a family. Now, the plastic stick mocked me with its blinking timer. When the result flashed positive, I laughed, a jagged, hollow sound. Dates circled in my mind. She'd been with Marcus for 6 months. This child could be his. Or mine. I drove to the Marriott. Room 214. The same room from the receipts. Pounding on the door, I expected rage. Instead, a housekeeper answered, stripping bloodstained sheets. "Guy OD'd last night," she muttered. "Pills and vodka." My stomach dropped. Marcus's suicide note lay on the nightstand. "Tell Ethan, I just wanted to feel seen." Olivia was waiting at the kitchen island when I got home, her fingers tracing the edge of ultrasound photo. "It's yours," she said without looking up. "The dates? I lied about how long it's been." Her voice wavered. "I thought if you believed it was his, you'd let me go." The room tilted. I gripped the counter, knuckles white. "Why?" The word clawed out of me. She slid the ultrasound toward me. "You weren't there. Not for the first appointment. Not for anything." Her eyes met mine, glassy and defiant. But he was. I wanted to scream, to smash the photo. Instead, I took it. The grainy image blurred as I walked out, Olivia's choked sob echoing in the hallway. That night, I sat in my truck outside Marcus's apartment. Rain blurred the streetlights into smears of gold. A woman emerged, Jessica, his wife, her face swollen from crying. She hauled trash bags to the curb, a child stuffed bear poking out of one. I rolled down the window. "I'm sorry," I said. She froze. "He loved you." I lied. "No." She kicked the bear into the gutter. "He loved feeling needed." I drove until dawn, the ultrasound burning in my pocket. At a roadside diner, I ordered coffee and opened Olivia's journal. Flipping to the last entry, I wanted to disappear. Now I'm trapped in a life even he doesn't want. The waitress refilled my cup. "Long night. Just starting," I said, leaving the photo on the table as I walked out. The lawyer's office smelled of lemon polish and desperation. Greg Matthews sat behind a mahogany desk, his cufflinks glinting as he slid a folder toward me. Adultery clauses, asset division, restraining orders. His voice blurred into static. I stared at the key to our house, my house now, lying between us like a severed limb. Olivia's name had already been scraped off the mortgage. Greg's pen tapped the paper. "Sign here and she gets nothing." The pen felt alien in my hand. For 8 years, I'd signed permits, checks, anniversary cards. Now this. The scratch of ink echoed too loud. Outside, July heat pressed like a fist. I drove past our old street, slowing near the park where Olivia and I once picnicked. A couple argued under the oak tree, her waving hands, his turned back. I'd taken her there after proposing, the ring tucked in a champagne flute. Now, kids skateboard over the cracks in the pavement we'd called ours. The house was a carcass. Olivia's plants wilted on the windowsills, soil spilling onto floors I'd installed myself. In the bedroom, her closet gaped empty except for a single black lace bra, the one from the photos. I hurled it into the fireplace, watching synthetic lace curl into ash. Under the bed, a shoebox. Our wedding vows, brittle paper whispering lies. To cherish every version of you. Beneath them, a Ziploc bag of pills, Xanax, Ambien labels peeled off. Olivia's handwriting on a sticky note. For when the silence gets too loud. The doorbell rang. Jessica stood on the porch, Marcus's wedding band in her palm. "He wanted you to have this," she lied. I closed her fingers around it. "Keep it. Melt it. I don't care." She left the ring in the mailbox anyway. The hospital waiting room reeked of antiseptic. A nurse called my name. "Paternity results." The envelope trembled in my hands. Probability of paternity 99.97%. The dates had been a lie. The child was mine. Olivia's voicemails played on loop during the drive home. "Ethan, please, I can't do this alone." Her voice cracked on alone, a word I'd taught her. I pulled into the motel lot, the clerk nodding like a specter. Room 12's AC groaned, freezing the ultrasound to the mini fridge with a magnet. At 3 a.m., I texted Greg, "File the papers." Then I blocked Olivia's number. Dawn found me tearing out the kitchen wall, the one she'd painted yellow because sunshine should live indoors. Drywall dust-coated my tongue, bitter and clean. The gym reeked of disinfectant and ambition. I hadn't set foot here since the divorce, but Marcus's ghost haunted every treadmill. His locker still bore his nameplate, Reyes scuffed at the edges. Inside, a faded photo of Jessica and a toddler tucked behind a protein shaker. I pocketed it, guilt sour on my tongue. On the far wall, Olivia's spin class laughed through the glass. Her voice carried, "Push harder. This hills your marriage," a joke that drew uneasy chuckles. She hadn't seen me yet. I watched her adjust a student's posture, her hands lingering on his shoulders. Her wedding band was gone, but a tan line remained, pale as a scar. At the smoothie bar, a barista slid me a mango blend. "Marcus's usual," she said, mistaking my silence for grief. The drink tasted like betrayal and whey. The construction site buzzed with nail guns and curses. My crew eyed me sideways. I'd missed 3 deadlines since the paternity test. Dave tossed me a hard hat. "Boss wants you on the demo team." He meant the house on Elm Street, a crumbling Victorian I'd saved for Olivia's future studio. Sledgehammer in hand, I swung at the floral wallpaper she'd once loved. Plaster rained down, revealing a hidden alcove. Inside, a mason jar stuffed with handwritten notes. Ethan forgot our date again. He didn't notice my new dress. I hate how much I still love him. The date spanned 2 years. I texted Greg, "Pause the divorce." He replied with a single question mark. Olivia's apartment loomed under a bruised sky. She answered in sweatpants, belly rounded beneath an oversized shirt. "Ethan?" Her voice cracked. I thrust the mason jar at her. "You kept these. Why?" She cradled the notes like wounded birds. "To remember the woman I was before you erased her." Rain dripped down my neck as she shut the door. Through the window, I watched her sink to the floor, pressing a note to her chest. Back in my truck, I found Marcus's photo still in my pocket. Jessica's number was scribbled on the back. I dialed, hung up, and texted, "Coffee tomorrow?" The ultrasound fluttered on the dash, the baby's silhouette blurring in the storm. The cafe hummed with the clatter of porcelain and hushed regrets. Jessica sat by the window, Marcus's silver watch strapped to her wrist like a shackle. She stirred her latte, the foam forming a spiral that mirrored the tattoo on her neck, a swallow mid-flight. I placed the photo of her toddler on the table, the edges curled from days in my glove box. "He asked about you," she said, not looking up. "Wanted to know why Daddy's friend never visits." Her nail traced the watch's cracked face. "I told him you're busy building tombs for the living." Rain blurred the world outside. She slid an envelope across the table, Marcus's autopsy report. "Cause of death, acute intoxication." "He was sober for 2 years," she whispered. "Until her." The word her hung between us, sharp as broken glass. The therapist's office smelled of sandalwood and false hope. Dr. Rivera's pen hovered over her notepad as I described the mason jar notes. "Do you think Olivia wanted you to find them?" she asked. I gripped the armchair, leather creaking. On her desk, a Zen garden raked into perfect waves. I overturned it. "Does it matter? She's still lying." Dr. Rivera didn't flinch. And you? What truths are you avoiding? Later, in the parking lot, I found Olivia's compact mirror in my jacket, left there during one of her midnight breakdowns. My reflection stared back, fractured by the crack she'd made slamming it years ago. The Victorian house groaned under demolition. I sledgehammered the last wall of Olivia's would-be studio, plaster dust snowing over blueprints she'd drawn. Behind the drywall, a time capsule, our wedding vows, a dried corsage, and a positive pregnancy test from 2016. One I never knew existed. My phone buzzed. Olivia, I lost the baby. The crew's laughter echoed downstairs as I crouched in the rubble, the test's faded lines blurring. Greg called. Divorce finalized. Congrats. But the word curdled. I texted Jessica, how's your son? At dusk, I drove to the hospital. Olivia's room was dark, monitors beeping a dirge. She slept clutching the ultrasound, her Ford drip whispering almost. I left Marcus's photo on her bedside table and walked out, the hallway fluorescence humming like a requiem. The foreclosure notice arrived in a crisp white envelope, its legal jargon stamped over a photo of the Victorian house. I'd stopped paying the mortgage after the demolition. Now, bulldozers circled the property like vultures. In the rubble, I found Olivia's sketchbook, pages filled with designs for the studio we'd planned. A half-finished drawing of us, hand in hand under a willow tree, graphite smudged where she'd erased my face. At the storage unit, her belongings sat in labeled boxes, wedding china, his sweaters, things to forget. I lit a match, watching flame tongues lick the edges of our wedding quilt. The smoke alarm screamed. By the time firefighters arrived, only ash and a single pearl earring remained. Jessica's son, Liam, stood on my motel doorstep clutching a Lego spaceship. Mom says you fix things, he mumbled, towing the welcome mat. His eyes, Marcus's eyes, glinted with a trust one hadn't earned. We spent the afternoon assembling a broken shelf, his small hands steadying mine. When Jessica arrived, she froze at the sight of us. He's not a replacement, she hissed, yanking Liam away. Later, I found her cigarette butts in the parking lot, each stamped with lipstick the color of dried blood. A note under my windshield, stay away from what's left of us. The hospital chapel's stained glass cast fractured light over Olivia's empty pew. She'd been discharged, but her chart lingered at the nurse's station. Miscarriage incomplete. Recommend counseling. In the courtyard, I spotted her feeding pigeons, her hospital gown flapping like a surrender flag. She didn't see me drop the sketchbook into the donation bin. That night, I dreamed of Marcus. He stood in the Marriott room, pills spilling from his palms. You think you won? He laughed. She'll always love the ghosts more. I woke to Greg's voicemail. Olivia's contesting the divorce. Says you're unfit. The motel AC dripped a steady no as I packed Liam's Lego into my duffel bag and drove north. The highway stretched endless under a leaden sky, asphalt bleeding into the horizon. I'd driven 9 hours without stopping, Liam's Lego spaceship rattling in the passenger seat. A roadside diner flickered ahead, its neon signs spelling eat in dying cursive. Inside, vinyl booths crackled with static, the air thick with grease and nostalgia. A jukebox played our song, Landslide, the one Olivia and I danced to at our rehearsal dinner. I stabbed the power cord with a fork, silencing Stevie Nicks mid-verse. The waitress slid a coffee across the counter, her apron stained with maple syrup and regret. Passing through, she asked, nodding at my duffel bag. I traced the ring of a long-ago spilled mug on the counter, Olivia's nervous habit. The answer died in my throat. Outside, a payphone swallowed my last quarters. Greg's voicemail growled, she's claiming emotional abuse. Get back here or lose everything. The receiver slipped from my hand, swinging like a noose. The construction site outside Tulsa rose skeletal against the sunset. I'd taken a job framing tract homes, cookie-cutter boxes for cookie-cutter lives. My foreman, a grizzled Texan named Boone, tossed me a nail gun. Eyes on the wood, not the past. He didn't ask about the Lego in my toolbox. At lunch, I found Olivia's scarf tangled in the chain-link fence, pink cashmere frayed at the edges. She'd worn it the day we closed on the Victorian house, laughing as the wind tried to steal it. Now, it reeked of diesel and decay. I buried it under concrete when Boone wasn't looking, the mixer's growl drowning my guilt. That night, motel TV static whispered secrets. A news segment showed the Victorians' demolition, our willow tree reduced to splinters. The reporter's mouth moved soundlessly, but I read her lips. Arson suspected. Jessica's call came at 3 a.m., her voice a frayed wire. Liam's gone. He took his spaceship. I pictured him huddled in a bus station, clutching that damn Lego. The highway blurred as I sped back, rain tattooing the roof. The police found him at the Marriott Room 214. He'd traded the spaceship for a keycard, the clerk said. Kid claimed he was meeting his dad. Marcus's ghost clung to the walls, peeling wallpaper echoing his laughter. Liam slept curled on the bed, tear tracks glinting under fluorescence. I carried him to the truck, his breath warm against my neck. Jessica's headlights swarmed us in the lot. You don't get to save him, she spat, snatching Liam away. Her taillights vanished, leaving me in the acid glow of the motel sign. In the rear view, my eyes mirrored Marcus's hollow, hungry haunting. The courthouse steps were slick with November rain, my reflection fractured in puddles. Olivia stood under a black umbrella, her lawyer murmuring strategy. She'd lost weight, her cheekbones sharp as the lies she'd etched into our marriage. The restraining order flapped in my pocket, 100 yards minimum distance, but her perfume still reached me, jasmine and regret. Inside, the judge's voice droned through custody arguments. Irresponsible. Unstable. Danger to the child. Olivia's lawyer projected photos of the motel parking lot, cigarette butts circled like bullet points. Greg countered with Marcus's autopsy report. The gavel cracked. Paternity grants rights, the judge ruled, but visitation requires evaluation. Olivia's pen scratched victory across her notepad. At the elevator, our shoulders brushed. She didn't flinch. You look tired, she said, smudging her lipstick like she used to when nervous. The doors closed before I could lie. The evaluation center smelled of crayons and false optimism. A social worker observed me through one-way glass as I built Lego towers with Liam. He hummed a lullaby Jessica must have sung, his fingers steadying mine. Mom says you're not my dad, he whispered, snapping a red block into place. But I like your stories. Later, the report read, subject displays nurturing behavior but struggles with emotional permanence. Greg translated, they think you'll bail. I drove to the Victorians' ruins, now a community garden. Our willow stump had sprouted new shoots, leaves trembling in the wind. Olivia's candlelit vigil glowed on social media, Miscarriage Remembrance Day. Hashtags and heart emojis. I parked outside her apartment, engine idling. She emerged in a white dress, candle cupped like the baby we'd never hold. Her flame died in the rain halfway down the block. At midnight, I texted coordinates, the Willow's GPS pin. She arrived barefoot, mud streaking her hem. We didn't speak. She placed a Polaroid in the roots, our Coney Island grin frozen under cotton candy skies, and walked away. I burned it. The smoke coiled into the shape of a swaddled child before dissolving. Dawn found me at Jessica's, Lego spaceship in hand. She let me leave it on Liam's windowsill, the starship angled toward Orion, a constellation Marcus once taught me to hate. The willow tree's shadow stretched skeletal across the riverbank, its new leaves trembling in the dusk. I'd come here every Sunday since the court ruling, watching saplings claw toward the sky. Today, Liam's Lego spaceship lay half buried in the mud, one wing snapped. Jessica hadn't returned my calls. Olivia's Instagram glowed with her latest post, a nursery painted storm cloud gray caption. For the almosts, I knelt to dig, fingers numb in the cold soil. The mason jar emerged, notes preserved in Ziploc bags. Olivia's handwriting blurred. He brought me tulips today. I didn't tell him I'm allergic. A receipt fluttered out, Marcus's final hotel charge, $214, circled in red. The river hissed, carrying the debris away. The motel bed sagged under the weight of unopened mail. Greg's letters threatened contempt of court. Jessica's pleaded for closure. Olivia's smelled of lavender, the stationery embossed with her initials. Meet me at the Willow. Please. Midnight found me there, flashlight beam slicing through fog. She stood ankle-deep in the river, dress clinging to her thighs. I kept the ultrasound, she said, voice raw. Not because of the baby. Because it was the last time you looked at me like I mattered. Her hand trembled as she offered the photo. I let the current take it, the ink bleeding into abstraction. She didn't follow when I left. The Victorian's ruins now housed a playground, swings creaking in the wind. Liam's laughter echoed as he clambered over the slide, Jessica hovering like a wraith. She nodded once, sharp, before turning away. In my pocket, Olivia's final note. I'm selling the nursery paint. Let me know if you want the receipts. At dusk, I parked by the Marriott. Room 214's light was off. The clerk handed me a dust-coated envelope, Marcus's suicide note unopened. I left it in the lobby trash, its weight lifting with each step. The highway hummed a lullaby. Somewhere ahead, the Willow waited. Somewhere behind, a spaceship sank. I pressed the gas, chasing the horizon where the sky kissed the earth, a seam forever unraveling. One story may be ending, but the excitement never stops. Don't wait, jump right into the next one and keep the thrill alive.